Before the kingdoms, before the prophets, before even the flood, there was a forgotten age, a time when the heavens were still open and the earth was young, silent, fertile. Men were beginning to multiply, and their homes were bursting with laughter, work, and children, especially daughters. But behind this scene of birth and harmony, something was watching. From the heavens above, eyes that did not belong to this world looked down upon humanity, not human eyes, but heavenly eyes. Radiant beings called the sons of God, also known as the vigilantes, were originally sent to observe, protect, and guide. But something in them changed. They could not resist the beauty of the daughters of men. It was then that Samjazar, their leader, gathered 200 angels on a plateau near Mount Hermon. There, under a still clear sky, they made a pact that would seal the fate of the world. They would descend to earth and take human women as their wives. Samjazar hesitated. He feared that he would be the only one to take the blame, but they all swore, "Let us do it together. Let us be accomplices, for there is no turning back." When the feet of these beings touched the ground of the earth, it trembled. Their appearance was too glorious for men, tall, imposing, with a light that was not of this world. Humans gazed at them with admiration and fear. It was the beginning of an unholy alliance. The daughters of men mated with them and bore children, but these children were not human. They were hybrids. Giant creatures with immense strength and a thirst for power. Nephilim were born from the union between heaven and earth, and their existence corrupted everything. This is how the story begins, that many know only in fragments, but that you are about to delve into completely. If this has touched you, surprised you, or sparked your curiosity, I invite you to subscribe to the channel now, because what you will hear here could change the way you see the Bible forever. Let's continue. In the beginning, the Nephilim seemed like wonders, tall as towers, beautiful as shooting stars, and endowed with strength beyond human comprehension. Their voices rumbled like thunder, their footprints left deep marks on the fields. People worshipped them. They were called men of renown, gods of old. But behind their dazzling appearance lurked something dark. They began to devour everything, first the fruits of the land, then the livestock. And when that was no longer enough, they turned against the men themselves. The hunger that drove them was not just for food, it was for domination, but it wasn't just their bodies that left their mark. The fallen angels taught men forbidden secrets. One of them, Azil, revealed how to forge swords and shields, how to transform metals into weapons, how to fashion mirrors, ornaments, and even enchantments. Women learned sorcery, men learned to kill effectively. Beauty was twisted into seduction, knowledge became witchcraft, and science became a tool of war. Nature began to fall ill. Trees dried out of season, water changed color. Deformed creatures appeared, animals with too many eyes, wings that didn't flap, trapped in the wrong mouths. It was as if creation itself was being broken by unclean hands. And then the heavens fell silent. Divine patience for a time withered. The faithful angels looked on. The throne of God shone with justice, but not yet with judgment. The world groaned. The earth, like a wounded mother, cried out in silent pain. But not everyone had forgotten the Creator. A man walked silently through the cities dominated by the Nephilim. His name was Enoch. He feared neither giants nor fallen angels. He had the authority of one who walked with God. His voice cut through the air with prophecies. "You, sons of heaven, have come down and defiled the earth. The Most High will judge you. The mountains will not hide your guilt. Water will cover everything, and your children will be wiped out." Few listened, most scoffed. But heaven listened. And you who are here, following this story, tell me, can you imagine that time? Do you believe that all of this is in the Bible and in the forgotten books that were left aside for centuries? Write here in the comments. Did you already know this part of the story? I want to know if you're enjoying it because we still have some surprising revelations ahead. Let's move on. Destruction is approaching. The darkness no longer hid. It reigned. The Watchers, those who had been sent to guard, became tyrannical rulers. In their palaces carved of black stone, they received human sacrifices as if they were gods. Their eyes, once bright with the light of heaven, were now filled with pride and lust. The Nephilim, their gigantic children, walked among men as lords of the earth. Their voices shook the valleys, and their hands shaped the land with cruelty. Human tribes bowed before them. Altars were erected. Songs of praise were written too. Names like Abba, Anak, and Gilgamesh. The memory of the Creator God began to fade from the lips of men, replaced by the worship of living idols. The land was no longer the same. The soil, saturated with innocent blood, gave off a bitter odor. The rivers ran red. Trees died out of season. The animals were confused. They migrated aimlessly. Some were born with deformities never before seen. It was as if creation itself was crying out for justice. But in heaven, silence. The throne of the Most High shone with silent wrath. The time of patience was at an end. Then God called 4 of his most powerful messengers, 4 archangels, 4 missions. 1 judgment, Miguel, the prince of the heavenly hosts, would be sent to subdue the rebellious Watchers. Raphael, the healer, would be given the mission of capturing Aziel, the most corrupt among the fallen, and throwing him into an eternal abyss. Gabriel, the herald of sacred battles, would incite war among the Nephilim themselves, spreading division and destruction. Uriel, the bearer of divine light, would descend to proclaim the final judgment to the wicked generation. Meanwhile, far from the palaces of the giants, a man walked against the tide of the world. Enoch, a descendant of the line of Seth, 7th from Adam, he walked with God. His feet touched the corrupt earth, but his soul remained on high. He was taken up into the heavens and saw what human eyes should never see, halls of flame, rivers of light, the books of eternity. Some names were there, firm as rock, others blotted out as if they had never been. Upon returning, Enoch came down, with a pale face and burning eyes. "There will be no peace for you," he declared to the Watchers. "There will be no mercy. Your children will be destroyed. Your works will be undone, and you will fall forever into the depths." The fallen angels trembled. The arrogance that had once inflamed them dissipated into despair. With tears that burned like acid, they pleaded, "Enoch, take our supplications to the Most High. Intercede for us." And he took it. He was lifted up once more into the heavens. He carried with him the writings of the fallen, supplications, petitions, confessions. But the decree had already been sealed. Enoch returned with slumped shoulders and heavy eyes. No forgiveness will be granted. Raphael was the first to act. He found Aziel hidden in the mountains of Dudael, where the sky no longer touched the earth. With chains forged in God's own light, he dragged him over sharp rocks to a hole as deep as time. He threw him in and sealed the entrance with eternal fire. Aziel screamed, but the sky did not answer. Gabriel descended upon the camps of the Nephilim. He sowed envy, he stirred up strife. Where once there had been alliances, ancient hatreds arose. Clans of giants began to destroy each other. Bloody wars, monsters pitted against monsters, colossuses toppling like towers of pride. Miguel then came down. With a sword that shone brighter than 1,000 suns, he entered the caves and palaces, where the Watchers hid. They, who had once been glorious, now recoiled before the presence of the one who represented the Most High. One by one, they were subdued. Chains wrapped around them. They were thrown into deep chasms, where flaming stones, were piled up, never to be removed again, and while the heavens waged war, on earth Noah sawed wood. Amidst the madness of the world, while men danced before giants and cities sang songs of blasphemy, one man followed the instruction of an unseen voice. Build an ark, for the end has come. And he built it. Day after day, amid mockery and scorn, Noah hammered away with faith. With each plank he laid, he also built a hope. The structure took shape, 300 cubits long, 50 wide, 30 high. A refuge, a floating womb for the new creation. People laughed. Why an ark in the desert? Where is your God, Noah? You've gone crazy. But he didn't answer. He just obeyed. If you've made it this far, I want to ask you, could you keep the faith like Noah in a world where everything was mockery, perversion, and darkness? Comment below. Tell me what you're feeling. Is this story touching you in any way? Take a deep breath. The sky is about to open. And now the waters will come, and with them the judgment of the eternal God. The seventh day arrived. It was no ordinary day. There was no music, no gentle wind, no birdsong. The sky was heavy. The air carried a thick silence, as if creation held its breath. Noah and his family entered the ark. Shem, Ham, Japheth, there. Wives and Noah's wife all obeyed the divine call. The door was closed, but not by human hands. It was God himself who sealed the entrance. And then the world shook. Rivers began to bubble, as if the ground were being torn apart from within. Clouds descended so thickly that they swallowed the mountains. Lightning cut through the sky with fury. Lightning, like heavenly swords, tore through the firmament. But it wasn't just rain. It was liquid judgment. The fountains of the great deep burst forth. Columns of boiling water gushed forth from within the earth. At the same time, the heavens opened and poured out torrents that looked like blades. The mountains no longer offered refuge, nor the stone fortresses, nor the altars of the giants. Everything was swallowed up, destroyed, dissolved. The Nephilim watched, first in arrogance, then in disbelief, and finally in terror. Gilgamesh raised his arms to the sky, shouting against the Most High, "Is this your revenge for having loved?" But the sky did not answer. Only the thunder roared. Og, the colossus of the east, tried to swim. His arms, like oak trunks, tore through the waters, but the waters had no end. There was no ground, there was no salvation. A whirlpool swallowed him, and he was buried in the belly of the abyss. Men ran. They climbed towers, mountains, trees. They cried out to their stone gods. They broke down in despair, but there was no answer. Inside the ark, the world looked different. Noah knelt on the wooden floor. The walls creaked with each crashing wave, but his face remained peaceful. His eyes were closed and his lips were in prayer. Outside, screams. Inside, silence. For 40 days and 40 nights the sky wept, and each tear was a sentence. The cities of the giants were submerged. Their names were erased. Their memories were drowned. The watchers, chained in darkness, heard the roar of the flood. Their creations were destroyed. Their vanities were crushed. Their children exterminated. In the sky, a silent celebration began. The stars, previously obscured, began to shine again. The books of eternity received new inscriptions. With ink of light, the names of those who remained faithful were engraved with glory. The scales were balanced. For months, the ark floated above a world without contours. There were no mountains. There were no valleys. Only water. It was as if the earth had returned to its primitive state, as in the beginning, but there was something new, a promise hidden inside a wooden box, a seed of hope guarded by God himself. And then, like a breath, the wind of Elohim began to blow. The waters receded, slowly, as if even they knew that the judgment had served its purpose. The ark finally rested on the mountains of Ararat. The wood touched the rock, and the silent world began, little by little, to breathe. Noah opened a window, a raven flew in, then a dove. Hope took wings. Days passed. The silence of the newly revealed land was deafening. But something new was emerging. A purified world, a ground cleansed of blood, a sky without the roar of giants. Noah left the ark. His feet touched the moist ground. The first gesture was not to build a city, nor to seek food. It was to build an altar made of simple stones with tired hands, but with a grateful heart. On it he burned offerings, and the aroma rose to heaven like incense. And God was happy. Never again will I curse the ground because of man, even though his heart imagines evil from his youth. I will make a covenant. And then the arch appeared, an arc of colors never seen before, crossing the skies, connecting the clouds to the mountains. It was not just refracted light, it was the sign of the new era, the alliance between God and earth. If you're here with me this far, I want to know, how do you imagine this moment when Noah stepped into a silent world after the greatest judgment in history? Write here in the comments. Tell me, did this image move you? Because what comes next still echoes in our days. The ground was still wet when Noah stepped out of the ark. The footprints left in the mud marked the beginning of humanity. His children spread across the lands. From their lineages came nations, cultures, kingdoms. But even in a renewed world, the ancient echoes still whispered. Not all traces of the Nephilim had disappeared. Over time, rumors began to emerge. People claimed to have seen men of unusual stature. Others spoke of cities surrounded by walls that reached the sky. In taverns and campfires, stories circulated. There were descendants of the giants who had escaped or returned through some corrupt inheritance. The names changed: Raphaim, Emim, Zuzim, Anakim, but the essence was the same. Large bodies, arrogant eyes, voices like thunder. In Bashan, a king slept on a 12-foot-long iron bed. In Canaan, the sons of Anak ruled the mountains. The promised lands were infested with these beings. Then God called a man, Abraham. From them would come a nation, a separate people, who would inherit the promised land and would once again face the descendants of darkness. Many generations later, these people walked through the wilderness, led by Moses. Ahead was Canaan, but fear paralyzed them. 12 spies were sent out, 10 returned in panic. It is true that the land flows with milk and honey, but men are giants. We are like grasshoppers before them. The people wept, they murmured, they wanted to return to Egypt. But 2 stood up, Joshua and Caleb. Do not be afraid. The Lord is with us. These giants will be like bread for us. Words of faith spoken in the midst of fear. Because of this, only the children of that unbelieving generation would inherit the land. Under the leadership of Joshua, Israel crossed the Jordan, and war came. The cities of the giants began to fall. Debir, Hebron, Anab, immense fortresses destroyed by obedience. The most feared was Og, king of Bashan. His name made kings tremble. His bed was of iron, his body colossal. But God said, "Do not be afraid of him. I have delivered him into your hands." And so it was. Og fell. Bashan was taken. The walls crumbled. The ancient gods were reduced to dust, but the echoes were not yet over. Among the Philistines, in a city called Gath, a name arose that would mark generations: Goliath. 10 feet tall, shining bronze armor, a voice that made soldiers retreat. For 40 days he defied Israel. "Choose a man and send him against me. If he defeats me, we will be his servants. But if I defeat him, you will serve us." Silence fell. In the Hebrew camp, not even Saul, the king, dared to confront him. But then from the camp came a young man, a shepherd. No armor, no sword, just a staff, a sling, and faith. His name was David. Goliath sneered. "Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?" Come, and I will give your flesh to the birds. But David did not tremble. You come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, whom you have defied. The stone flew, the sky stopped, and the giant fell face down on the ground like a tree rotten by pride. David ran, took the enemy's own sword, and cut off his head. The terror that had dominated men for centuries now bled at the feet of faith. From that day on, the giants lost their symbolic power. There were still descendants, like Ishbi-Benob, Shaph, and Lami, Goliath's brother. But one by one, they were all defeated by ordinary warriors, but who carried something extraordinary, the presence of the living God. It was David, the boy who defeated Goliath, who inspired the downfall of the last Rephaim, Elhanan, Sibek, Abishai, men of faith, not stature. They defeated deformed giants, some with 6 fingers on each hand and foot, cursed creatures, and when the last one fell, the earth breathed differently. The cities built by the giants have been abandoned. Their names have become warnings, their legends whispers, their spirits wanderers. They still roam, some say, like bodiless shadows, awaiting judgment. But God's people learned a lesson that echoes to this day. It is not strength that defeats giants, it is faith. And now, I want to know from you, did this story touch your heart? Have you ever heard about giants like this in so much detail? Write here in the comments. Share with someone who needs to hear that the impossible can happen. And if you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Many more stories like this are yet to come, because giants still emerge, but true faith always rises.